Fantastic. Well, I'm pleased today on this episode of the InsurTech Leadership Podcast to be joined by Illia Pinchuk. He is the CEO and founder of DICEUS. Welcome, Illia.
Hello. Hi, Joshua. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I understand it, DICEUS builds ready-made and custom software for insurers, brokers, and the captive insurance market, including a captive management platform and an owner portal that pull policy claims, reinsurance, and compliance into one system.
Yep.
This is an interesting conversation right now because captive premiums have crossed close to $80 billion globally, and the segment keeps growing. Yet a lot of captive owners and managers still run critical operations on spreadsheets and disconnected reports. So we'll get into that, learn a little bit more about Illia's leadership journey, and talk about where we are in kind of insurance technology, and insurtech today. So welcome again, Illia.
Yep. Hi, Joshua. Thank you again for having me today. So let me quickly introduce myself. So I have been running this company for the last 14 years, and from the day one, so we were providing professional services for insurance organizations, I must say. So primarily insurance companies, large insurance brokers, MGAs, and third-party administrators. So later, I decided, since we had a lot of experience working like in the professional field, so that was the time for us to start building our own solutions and helping insurance companies, not just from the service perspective, but or insurance organizations, not only from the service perspective, but also providing them our ready-made solutions. So, and we built 22 different products. They are across different business lines and different departments. So we automate and a lot of different functionality and business processes inside the different organizations. And indeed, captive market is one of our best segments at the moment because all our solutions, they work in different segments, but captive market, this is one of the mainstreams in our company. We're happy to talk about this topic more because I see real growth here.
Yeah, sure. So maybe just you can elaborate on what the core problem is that you're seeing, from an operations point of view in the captive market.
Yeah. So, first of all, this is quite, I must say, young market in terms of business processes, digital solutions, and in general, it's just like young market. So not that many players still in that field, but I see, it's growing quite fast. And so in total, from what I know, there are about 7,000 captives registered in the entire world. So obviously, most of them, or actually half of them, in the United States. And then we have such good domiciles as Bermuda, Cayman Islands, and then obviously a lot coming, hopefully, in the UK market. But nevertheless, so one of the key problems, what we are trying to solve and help them with, it's actually, because we should probably then first of all differentiate the captive market in general. So there are a lot of captive managers who help captive owners to manage the daily operation stuff. Then we have self-captive managed organizations that they manage their captives on their own. And we have also group captives. They can be managed also on their own, but they also can be managed by captive managers. Of course, we have more than that. We have also risk retention groups, and few other self-insured organizations, but I'm not going to touch today these topics, right? Because we work across all of them. So if we're talking about captive managers, they have one issue or set of issues. If we're talking about self-managed captive, so they have slightly different type of issues or challenges that they want to solve. So if we're talking about captive managers, so what kind of challenges do they have? They have obviously a volume of captives that they manage, and and they issues or the problem starts all the way from policy issuance, and then they have a lot of issues in terms of the managing all these spreadsheets, financial. So there are a lot of complex business logic, like for example, A/B funding. So when captive managers or actually captives wants to have A/B fund, so in A fund they normally store or actually keep their initial premium, and then in the B fund, so this is another reinsurance layer, especially in group captives. This is somehow should be connected to the general ledger and the policy administration system, and then here we have a lot of different mess, right? So because they need to work with different parts of the business, and it's very difficult for them to manage this in the spreadsheet. So, and every captive that they're getting as a new business for them. For example, they might just get another captive owner who wants to create another captive. So, and then they can help them to form a captive, and then they need to manage this captive. And then they need a new additional consultant who will help to manage this captive. So, and the number of captives, the number of consultants, business consultants that they need is quite proportional to number of captives that they onboard. So meaning that they cannot grow without adding new people. So it becomes more people business than just a service business, and they can grow if they onboard new people to the company. So, and that's probably also a big challenge for them, because then they obviously, if they want to have more business, they need to have more people, and amount of people is limited, and they cannot grow that fast as they want. So we are helping them to tackle those challenges. So if we're talking about self-managed captives, so here we have a bit different issue, because they don't need traditional policy administration system, because they normally issue 1 or 2 or maybe 5 or 10 policies a year. So in majority cases, it's actually only one policy, so they don't need policy administration system, but they do have claims, and we help them to work with the claims management system. So we provide them actually claims management system. Sometimes they might have claims management need in the claims management system, but they might also need a general ledger. So, and they want this to be all in one system. They don't want to buy those expensive systems from different providers and connect them to each other. So they would rather prefer a niche player like us, because we are a niche player, and they want to have all in one system. So, and that would be much cheaper for them. And they, of course, they fight for cost, because the whole idea behind the captive and captive management, it's about the cost, right? So otherwise you can go just to the traditional insurance company and buy coverage, right? So, and that's why, I mean, our systems, they help to reduce this operational overhead, lower the cost of maintaining those operations, daily operations, and in make this business more reasonable, efficient, and profitable for all of us.
So it sounds like it's different whether it's a captive management organization, whether it's a group captive, whether it is a self-managed captive. But where do you typically see the most kind of value leakage in a captive that's being run manually? Is it claims that, like you just referred to at the end there? Is it the reserving? Is it reinsurance reconciliation? Is it the regulatory piece? I mean, where are the places where value is lost the most?
Yeah. So if we're talking about capture managers, so the biggest challenge, well, they have more challenges than self-managed captives. One of the biggest, because how they normally work, they sometimes have, they actually work with captive owners and they manage their captive on their behalf. But there is also another way how do they operate. So they create sponsored captive, which is like a group captive, and they create self-structure in it. So actually captive owners are the one who owns the captive, and then they just renting out this cell inside the captive to mid-sized business, I must say, because larger business they can afford create, and they own captive, right? So and then in this case they have a need to manage all the daily routine that starts all the way from managing this prospect and then creating this structure in the system, so to keep all the data, and then sometimes issuing policies. But it's not always the case, because in many cases policy will be issued by frontier carrier. So, but in some cases, actually capture manager might issue a policy. So, and then the same concerning or regarding endorsements, right? So, but then they have a big gap in terms of the managing premium, right? Because if it's, as I said, group captive and they have more complex structure, then in this case, they need to manage. So they need this kind of module that we have, which is premium allocation. So they need they need a system that will allocate premium properly and put, well, certain amount to the, and based on the business rules, to A fund, to the B fund, and then of course they need also reconciliation model, and they need also general ledger, because they need to track everything in the financial system. And then there is also another side of it. So they might, in most cases, they don't manage claims, but we have clients who are managing claims. And if they don't, for example, so then they work with third-party administrators. So third-party administrators might be a lot. So if you have 50 captives, you might have 10 or 20 different third-party administrators, and everyone has its own system. And they just provide those loss run reports, and you have to be able to upload them into the system. And if they don't have the system, right, and they have all the spreadsheets, so then at the end of the month, you're getting 20 different, completely different spreadsheets, and you somehow should make a magic work, right, in order to calculate loss ratio, right, to enter into your general ledger, which is a big issue. And we have loss run processing module inside our system that allows, actually, regardless of the template, to upload this template structure, upload it into the system, and allocate this, or actually not allocate, and store it in the system and reflect it in our general ledger. So meaning, so they don't have this headache at the end of the month. So everything what they do, they just set up, or we configure for them at the beginning of our preparation, or once they get a new TPA in the system template structure, and they just upload this file, and that's it. And they don't have any headache. So well, you also touched the compliance. Yes, exactly. So they need to create a work block at the end of the period, and they also need to get this data from the system. So, and it's also taken a lot of the time to do this job. Yeah, and also there is also a very crucial component, which is the investment functionality, because they need to, they normally work with investment funds, and they just use them in order to manage the actually reserves, right? So, and they use those instruments like ETFs, government bonds, and whatever to work with inflation, right? So, and then they need on the monthly basis or whatever basis that they have structured to upload this data into the system and to reconcile in the system. So, which is also might be not only one management fund and management company, so they might have multiple, and they might provide this data in different formats, in different templates, and it has to be also uploaded somehow into the system. So we should think about the capture manager. It's as an organization that can manage tens or sometimes hundreds of insurance companies, and they have obviously the challenge is not equal to like large traditional insurance companies, but in a sense it's different, and it might be difficult in some other sense. So and we are helping them to work with this.
So is your platform set up as a series of kind of modules that are different point solutions, or is it an integrated platform, or how does it work? Because you're talking about different use cases here.
Yeah, so we have a complete platform, right? But the idea behind it is that how we work with our clients. So we normally trying to understand from day one, what do they need, where the biggest pain point for them. And then we basically just configure the system based on the requirements, because the system is, the granularity of our system is not even module based, it's a feature based. So we charge based on the number of features the client will use. So which makes this even more attractive for them. So it's not like that they buy for us, for example, general ledger, or they buy for us claims management, where they can specifically explain us what they really need inside this module. It's not about the billing, so that they need reconciliation, collection, invoice, and they might say, we need just invoicing from the billing module, and that's it. So, and then we will charge them only for this particular functionality that they use. So, so we are quite efficient in that regard, and it's one of our differentiation factors. And I think, similar will come to this red ocean of policy administration systems for traditional insurance companies and MGA. They might need to change the price in one day.
So I know we've talked about, different business models, different use cases, et cetera, but how are you typically measuring whether the platform is working?
In what sense?
Like time saved, errors caught, faster processing, et cetera.
Yeah, from the business perspective, correct?
Yeah.
So look, for example, if we're talking about, let's say, policy issuing, right? So if clients needs to issue 400 policies yearly, and they spend for each policy half a day or a day, and they have a specifically dedicated person to do this job. So, and then if with our system, they can actually do that literally within the 1 week or week and a half. So obviously it will be significant cost reduction. But from our latest conversation with our clients, we realized how they look at our platform. So they say, if our system can actually say, and they do believe, and they see those results, so can save them a work of 1 or 1.5 business analyst or capture manager consultant. So then for them it will make sense. So indeed, our system can save for traditional capture manager organization at least 1 or 1.5 consultant. But in reality, I think it's even more because they really don't need to do a lot of manual work that they do currently. But also other than that, where the system is useful. So because if you are in the spreadsheet, then you are binded to specific, you're binded to personality, right? So if one of the employees will leave the company, so it will be a huge issue, right? So to find in one or another Excel spreadsheet some of the information is quite challenging, isn't it? So, but if you have everything in the system, and if the system like our is actually self-explanatory, so we have recently added a lot of onboarding functionality, a lot of trainings, a lot of AI components that helps to explain how to use the system, and we have our support, so they can literally with the 1 or 2 weeks on board a new person, and this person will start performing as the one who has left the company. So this is where we see also another additional value for capture managers and capture owners. But also, other than that, I forgot to mention, so that capture one of another system which is additional kind of component, but we position this as a completely different project. It's capture owner portals. So what does it mean? So any capture manager can provide to capture owners they actually own portal where they can see transparently how the capture operates, and they can do interaction not only via email with the capture manager, but also via the system. So they can see if the capture is solvent. They can request any type of endorsement. They can see reserves. They can see loss ratio. They can see invoices. They can see outstanding invoices. So they can literally see everything what is going on in the system. So it's kind of additional side positive effect of having the core system, and then after that implementing this portal. Yeah.
So, as I understand it, you've got some AI handling different competencies within the platform, but in particular around the unstructured data piece. And if someone has years of spreadsheet data and maybe some of that data isn't totally clean, how do you handle onboarding a client like that and actually being able to take full advantage of the AI that's built into the platform?
Yeah. So this is where we are the experts, because we have been doing this job first, I must say, 7-8 years as a professional services work. I mean, our department. So we were providing mostly, most of our requests were related to this or somehow related to cleaning unstructured data. So we are experts in the data field, I must say. So we, first of all, we analyze the data, we clean the data, we structure the data, and then we upload it into the system. So we do full extract, transform, and load process on our side. We work closely, our business analysts work closely with our clients to understand the data, to find what data are missing, if there are any duplicates inside the records, how they related to each other, all those spreadsheets. So we do this analytics work on our side. So it's not that we leave the client with all the data and say, well, you can upload into the system. It's not like that. So we do instead of them. So that's also one of the differentiation factors, because we upload all the data, and we are working in the mass environment and understand what is going on inside, because we get used to this. It's it was our bread and butter in the past.
Got it. And what have been the challenges of building a business like this that is operating across multiple markets globally? And has your approach to growth changed at all over time as you're trying to scale?
You mean like for us challenges, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've got different regulatory environments, obviously, in the US from state to state, certain places where captives have had more traction. You mentioned Bermuda, you mentioned the UK, et cetera. So I think you have staff located in different locations as well. So, managing all that in a smaller growth organization.
Yep. The biggest challenge is, well, that we have been working for some time already in this market, but still we see new and new cases where our system can be even more flexible. So we see, well, certain barrier entering this market from the beginning, but still after, well, sometime, well, since we are already in this market, we see still more and more new use cases. Because again, this market is quite, well, young, and a lot of the things still not standardized, so meaning so they can be changed over time. So, and that's why, I mean, we work quite hard from product management, software product management perspective, to develop this product as much flexible as possible, so that our clients can use low-code solutions inside the platform to configure the system on their own without getting back to us. So that's still, I think, one of the biggest challenges, and we are successful in it, I must say, because we put enormous amount of hours and thinking of how that should work, and we are getting there.
Got it. And are there certain things that, you make decisions on how you standardize centrally, and then certain things by local market, or how do you think about that?
Yeah. So if I think, well, and from what I see, US market is the most developed in that regard. So because this whole idea of alternative risk transfer came all the way from the United States, right? So all over the world, so they have captives, but in many domiciles, like for example in Europe, so they don't have still all this cell structure implemented as such. So it's more still a rigid structure in terms of captives. In that sense, for us, other markets much easier than the United States. And since we are working in the United States, so well, adjust or adopt our solution for other market is much easier. So that's why, I mean, I cannot say, well, that the solution is different from one market to another. Obviously, there are some particularities. For example, in the United States, it's a GAAP standard financial. In Europe, it's IFRS, right? So we have to support different financial standards, but it's, I think, common for any general ledger. So in that regard, I cannot say that it's that much different. But from the regulatory, obviously, we have different possibility to configure different those work parts according to domicile, but obviously, well, we don't have still all domiciles from the world. So once we are getting a new client, we obviously configure based on the requirements and specifics.
Got it. Is there anything that you see forthcoming in the captive market, and do you see the adoption of platforms like yours as kind of closing the gap between captives, or potentially kind of expanding the gap and enabling, more sophisticated organizations to get a leading edge versus others that don't adopt the technology?
Yep. This is a very good question, and I have been thinking for a while about this. So eventually, I think this whole process of, for example, I will give you one case, because I see a lot of changes nowadays, especially with UK market and the new potentially domicile regime from 2027. It might change also a lot of the things. So we still don't know all the details about it, but something is happening also over there. But that's from the business perspective. When it comes to technology and where we experts are, so I see one of the good use cases is that we can help captive managers and potentially maybe in the future captive owners can, well, follow this. But speaking about particular captive managers, so because this this process of starting working with Capture Manager and renting a cell inside the organization when it comes to group capture, it's taking time. And even though I might create a capture, right, but I might give them to manage my capture. So it's taking time for us to start collaborating with each other. So my dream or ultimate goal is to help Capture Manager so that they can start collaborating with the client with just literally pressing few buttons. So that it should be like it should be fully digital. So they should pass through the digital onboarding step, just filling in all the details, and it should be automatically enrolled. Like, for example, if you want to open a bank account, so that you don't need to go to the bank, you can do nowadays remotely. So potentially it can be done also similar in that field. So and then I think, well, that will be a big game changer.
Yeah. Well, Ilya, I appreciate having you on today. Is there anything else we haven't covered that you'd like to touch on before we wrap up?
No, thank you very much, Joshua, for having me today. So if any from your audience will be interested in such solutions, I'll be happy to chat with them.
Yeah, we'll have your contact info and the company info in the show notes. And really appreciate having you on. Illia Pinchuk, CEO and co-founder of DICEUS. Thanks again.
Thank you.